At least 8 states in Nigeria failed to attract any foreign investments but piled up 194.09 billion naira debt difference between 2019 and 2020. Data from the Capital Importation report of the National Bureau of Statistics revealed that Bayelsa, Gombe, Ebonyi, Jigawa, Kebbi, Taraba, Yobe and Zamfara did not attract any foreign investments to the states. Meanwhile, data from the Subnational Debt report of the Debt Management Office showed that these states had a combined domestic and external debt of 710.38 billion naira in 2019, and by 2022, the combined debt of these 8 states had risen to 904.47 billion naira. Now, according to the World Bank, the increase in debts are due to low allocation from the federal government, which weakens the fiscal condition of the states, and other concerns has to do with forex availability, insecurity, infrastructural deficits, and so on. So this morning, I'm being joined by Muktar Mohammed, a financial analyst and CEO at Asheer Dynamic Solutions. It's nice to have you join us, Muktar, on the show.
Thank you. My pleasure. Good morning.
Now, looking at these 8 states that failed to attract FDIs in the country, but then amassed debts to the tune of over 900 billion, isn't that a microcosm of what characterizes a country that has so much potential, economic potential, but then is not able to draw from this potential to transform its economy? Because, of course, you get to borrow money and not plug it in the right channels that would you benefit for you, but then you continue to pile up debts. What do you make of this?
Well, if you look at the federal government itself, you have to ask yourself, federal government has also been borrowing. They've not attract foreign direct investment, even portfolio investors also. So the state, it could be just an outflow of the federal government. So it's not surprising. The only surprise I've seen in those states is a state like Bayelsa, which is an oil producing state, not to be among the states that are attracting foreign direct investment. For me, that's a big concern. For other states, when you look at other states, what they really have should have been things like mineral resources, solid mineral, especially with states like Zamfara, Kebbi, but Taraba. But you see the challenges that have to do with the exclusive list. So they don't have a right to exploit those minerals. So definitely, and again, when you look at their debt profile via foreign investment or the type of investment they have, then you realize that they are very, very low in those areas. And this has to do with a state like Zamfara. It's not that they are not attracting foreign investors. If the reports are there to anything to go by, the Chinese are there mining the solid mineral. Report recently came out that they have been the cause of what is foreign insurgency in those areas. But they've not, government have not been able to put in structures. And that you cannot blame the Zamfara state government for that. You have to look at the federal government not doing what they ought to do in terms of structure. So we're not surprised. If you are not having anything that is attracting foreign investors, no foreign investors will come. But again, the sad part of it is when you are not attracting investors and most of the states do not have any capital project, and yet you are borrowing. I think that for me is the sad side of this. States that have not been able to attract any investment.
Well, it's quite interesting that these states have ecological and geographical challenges, as it were. And when you look at states like Lagos, maybe the Federal Capital Territory, and Rivers State that generates relatively moderate IGR to run its governments, then you begin to wonder why these other states are not able to develop the capacity in terms of the generation of revenue, internal generation of revenue, to drive their government expenditure and, of course, expenses. So where do you think this would lead to if this persists for these countries? You talked about the fact that Bayelsa, even with its oil-rich endowments and its aquatic natural endowments, is also topping the list in terms of internal domestic and external debts. So you begin to wonder, why is it that, does it have to do rather with the issue of agreements being signed? Because you also mentioned the issue of China or Chinese expatriates mining minerals from Zamfara and this country. So does it have to do with the agreements that they have with these foreign companies, or where do you think this would lead if we have this kind of situation persist for these states?
Well, but the states, I don't see what they will do. When you talk about internal generated revenue, then you have to even create the avenue for revenue to be there so that we can come there and do business. Then we are able to pay you taxes. Most of these states do not even have anything. They are more or less like a civil servant state, and most of the civil servants and the state government have to remit tax directly. So what they get sometimes is just personal income tax. In terms of improving their IDP is really very challenging for them and couple with the security challenges in this state. And you made mention of the terrains. Also, the geographical terrain of the state is also a big challenge in terms of getting revenue. So while we're seeing what we're seeing nice, it has to do with our structure in terms of we've not been able to get those structures right in terms of withholding tax, in terms of taxes, and when they come from these states that happen to be the cash cow of Nigeria. But you mustn't forget also that even when we are talking about a state like Bayelsa State, what they lose in terms of taxes or in terms of foreign direct investment, they get it in terms of the 13% derivative that they get from the federal government, and also they are an oil producing state. They have special lands from the government, and that you could turn it back to mismanagement. If they are able to manage it, where they will be able to attract investors, especially with the kind of projects that they can embark upon in that area, the TK in terms of infrastructure. But for a state like Zamfara and others, I think the greatest problem they have had thus far is the insecurity that they have in those states. And so that has not even attracted investors to those states. Even their own citizens are leaving the state. So internal generated revenue, they have to come up with a strategy. It's what is happening also with the federal government. When you look at the informal sector, what you see in some of these states, Bayelsa, Zamfara, Kebbi, Taraba, they are the informal sector. And you need to give them something to be able to tax them to pay. You need to come up with a fixed tax rate because those are the people we call day-to-day living. They make their money day-to-day. So you need to come up. It's a challenge that the federal government is facing and most state governments are facing, even those that we think they are generating moderate internal generated revenue. And again, the challenge is that when you see state borrowing in terms of borrowing in dollars, then that's a big challenge because the exchange rate is very volatile. Some of these states borrowed this money 11 years ago when the exchange rate was about 250, some of them was about 150. But today's exchange rate in the official market is about 460. So without even doing anything, without even borrowing any after they borrowed, their debt profile keep piling up. And I think if you ask some of these states, most of these debts that are there were not debt that were incurred by the present administration, but most have been debt that have been incurred over time, which keep piling up because of the exchange rate volatility.
All right, that brings me to my final question. The World Bank actually projected that debt rates would rise between 2022 and 2023 by over 200%. And it doesn't seem as though these states will stop borrowing. So I'd like to just find out in about a minute or two. Do you think that there should be a cap, a limit to what states can borrow within a period of time? Because it seems as though they have the free hand, so they just continue to exploit that avenue that they have instead of looking internally, just as you have said, and seeing how they can grow the IGR. Should there be a cap?
Well, we need to look at our structure. And state government does not even have the power to just go and borrow a loan. And they have to pass through the National Assembly. The National Assembly have to approve. Then go to the Ministry of Finance for them to know, are they capable? So what we've seen is that even when states are not capable, because of the political undertone that has to go in, the National Assembly seems to approve it, and the Ministry of Finance seems to go around with the National Assembly. All you need to look at the federal government itself through the borrowing from the CBN, through the ways and the means. Even when they were not supposed to borrow based on the statistic on ground in terms of revenue, in terms of everything, but they still had their way because it becomes a political thing. So what I keep saying is that for us to put a cap and for this cap to work, we need to have institutions that are ready to do the right thing. There is a limit to what we can borrow because it's stated that once what you are borrowing is above what you can generate, you are not supposed to borrow any money. But it has become a political tool, so the government have a way of passing through with the National Assembly giving approval. So definitely, what the World Bank is saying could happen, but it's a time bomb that has been there for a while, since the coming of this outgoing administration. But hopefully, we think the new administration should begin to think of ways to begin to minimize their debt. And I keep saying that It's not rocket science for us to begin to use our assets as a means. When I mean asset, I mean the project. There's no reason why Bayelsa State should not begin to call people to come and build PPP, build and operate their road, create more, bring bridges, tow those bridges, create more avenue for their people to begin to have trade coming to the urban area, also become the aquatic beauty, like you have said, of Nigeria. So definitely it has to do with, if the government are ready to think out of the box, then we'll begin to get results. But as it stands now, the easiest thing for all the governments to do, both state and federal government, is to borrow.
All right, thank you so much, Muktar Mohammed, for joining us. We hope that they wouldn't borrow the future generations that are yet to come, but then we appreciate your presence. Now, the twin factors of a good investment climate as well as a good perception of that climate would have to be present for investors to develop the confidence to bring investment into a particular country. And calls have been made for better reforms, just as Muktar has said, to strengthen investors' interest in these states and other states of the Federation. And when we have structures, it would be beneficial not only for these states, but of course for the entire government of the Federation, and of course for Nigerians who are hoping for better fortunes to come to them. And that is the end of Business Edge for today. Do not forget that you can visit our social media platforms at New Central TV is the handle. You can head on to our website, www.newcentral.africa, and download our mobile app on App Store and Play Store. My name is Lekon Obanjo. Have a beautiful day.